Today is the 8th day and the final stage of the Criterium du Dauphine in the French Alps. It's the last chance for a clash between overall leader Bradley Wiggins and his contemporary Cadel Evans before the rematch in July at the Tour de France. This week's Criterium du Dauphine was always billed as a pre-Tour de France showdown. 2011 Tour de France champion Cadel Evans facing off against one of his main rivals, Bradley Wiggins. The battle has lived up to all of its expectations, with Wiggins holding the yellow jersey as race leader over the ever-attacking Cadel Evans, who will not go down without a fight. Today they duke it out in the mountains right up until the end with a summit finish. The final stage is next. The Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra has the riders of the Criterium du Dauphine go into the mountains of the Alps for the last time today. In the wintertime, this is a ski resort. In the summer, it's a haven for mountain bikers, but it's also the host for the final stage of the Criterium today from Morzine to Châtel, 77 miles of racing. Hello everybody, I'm Paul Sherman, alongside me is Bob Roll. This week we've seen a battle between two big favourites leading up to the Tour de France, Bradley Wiggins and Cadel Evans. So far, it's been very much advantage Bradley Wiggins.
To Cadel's credit, he's been the only serious threat to Bradley Wiggins' supremacy throughout the week's racing. Today, he has another chance to put Wiggins under pressure. There's a long, hard drag to the finish line, and if you attack, good things generally happen.
Yes, but Bob, so far Bradley Wiggins has been ahead at every corner. Everything that's been thrown at him he's been able to accept, and that's why he's at the top of the overall standings at the start of today. He goes into this race with a very confident final day, and I believe a very strong team to support him. One more yellow jersey is the one that he would like to get. That's the one at the end of today's stage when he will run out, hopefully, the overall winner. He leads his own teammate Michael Rogers by 1 minute and 20 seconds, and that daredevil escape yesterday by Cadel Evans allowed him to move up into third place overall, and that would give him a podium position once we get down to the finish in Châtel. But Bob, today it's all about the climbing.
There are 77 total miles. We're going to start in Morzine, where we finished yesterday. Sweeping descent to begin the stage. Watch for the breakaways to go crazy before we get to the first couple of climbs out on the race course. Cat 4, Cat 3, long descents also. 2 tough climbs before the long drag to the finish line, including Category 1 climb of the Corbier, and then long drag up to Châtel. It's a false flat, but there are some tough roads before the finish line. 77 total miles.
Yes, we're looking here at the 8-man leading group. 45 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 8 seconds their advantage, and it was a very, very rapid start to the day. 48.6 kilometres covered in the first hour. That's just on 30 miles an hour. Everybody wanted to get into the breakaway here this afternoon. 3 riders managed to get clear at 28 kilometres, and then this 8-man leading group formed. They've never been given very much advantage either, because their maximum lead was 2 minutes and 35 seconds, with the majority of the pacemaking in the peloton being done by Team Sky. The riders in the breakaway then, Jérôme Coppel is in here for 82R, Louis Vistre for Vacances Soleil, Pierre Rolland from Europcar in the green jersey, Dimitri Fofanov, Team Astana, Sylvain Chavanel, the French national champion, Christophe Lemouvel has got in there for Garmin Barracuda, Jaroslav Popovic for Radio Shack Nissan, and Stein Vandenberg has got himself in there for Omega Pharma Quickstep. Look at the speed of the main field though, Bob, and it's BMC Racing coming to the front. What does that tell you?
Philippe Gilbert is feeling a lot better is what it tells me in the season at this point, peaking perhaps later in the year than he did in last year's season when he dominated the spring on the front BMC with the team from Sky of the race leader. This is a very dangerous breakaway on today's stage. That's why the chase is so emphatic.
No, it certainly is. This is the arrière du peloton. This, in fact, is Christopher Kern. Now, that's a bit of a surprise to see him slipping backwards like this, but that's probably because of the pressure that's being put on the front end of the main field. Because the BMC Racing guys are coming to the front end of the main field, Bob, I think Cadel Evans is planning something on the final climb of the day, the penultimate climb of the day, sorry, because I believe the Col de Corbier is much more difficult than the final climb. So if Cadel Evans wants to do something, he's got to do it on the climb before the finish.
And watch out for the descent of the Corbier. Also, Cadel's put in 2 really difficult attacks to neutralize for the Sky team. both of them on descents, and he's gotten a little bit of an advantage, especially into Morzine yesterday. That will be worrisome for Bradley Wiggins, who's a race leader. If he had panicked a little bit seeing Evans attack yesterday and not ridden prudently on the descent, well, disaster could have struck. He was very calm, cool, and collected on yesterday's stage, but Cadel Evans and his teammates continued to pressure Sky and Bradley Wiggins.
Well, we're looking at green jersey at the back here for Team Europe car. Well, one of those riders abandoning today, Thomas Vogler. Strangely enough, Bob, people were saying this was the kind of stage for Thomas Vogler, but in fact his team doctor announcing that he had a start of a tendonitis around his knee and they wanted to pull him out so it wouldn't get aggravated in these cold conditions and in the climbs, because the Tour de France is on the horizon.
Well, Christophe Kern also was knocked out of the Tour de France because of tendonitis to his knee. He's a teammate of Thomas Vogler, and we just saw him tailed off the back of the main peloton trying to catch back on. Christophe Kern has recovered from that. He's back in the Dauphiné this year. Last year in the Dauphiné, Christophe Kern won a stage, and he was 6th overall. Reversal of fortunes for Christophe Kern on this season after the Tour de France. He had high hopes of doing something special in the Tour last year. His teammates most certainly did, including a man in the breakaway, Pierre Rolland from Europcar.
Well, you can see this breakaway, Bob, has been pegged by the main field because it's locked in. It's never gone more than 2.5 minutes, and it's locked in at this advantage here for the moment, just 2 minutes and 2 seconds. I have a feeling that we will start to see some serious action once we get up to this next climb of the day, because it's a short stage today as well as an explosive stage, just 77 miles long.
Well, generally in professional cycling these days, the group, the team of the leader, they give a breakaway as much time as they think is prudent. But in today's stage, this group of riders are of such quality that they've never given them much of an advantage of all. Louis Westra, great bike racer, he's the man on the front there. He's from the Vacances Soleil team. Pierre Rolland, very successful professional. Also Stein Vandenberg, Jaroslav Popovic in the group for the Radio Shack squad, Dimitri Fonov, Sylvain Chavanel, and that man, Stein Vandenberg, fresh off of the Amgen Tour of California. He's a great help to Levi Leipheimer throughout that week's racing, and he's trying to qualify for their Tour de France squad.
Calm and collected, this man in the yellow jersey, Bradley Wiggins, the leader of the overall standings, and of course the winner of this bike race last year. He's the defending champion. He's only got a few more miles to figure out whether or not he's going to win, or will his hope of winning this be spoiled by a certain Cadel Evans. The Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra on NBC Sports Network, is brought to you by Michelob Ultra, the superior light beer perfectly balanced for the ultra life. And by Villiers Tristina, 106 years of bicycle-making tradition and innovation, and sponsor of Team Lampre ISD. And Competitive Cyclist. For 15% off cycling apparel and accessories, visit competitivecyclist.com/TDF and use promo code TDS15. We're making our ways deeper and deeper into the Valley of the Alps. We're actually not very far away from the Swiss and the Italian borders. That was the small town of Châtel we were looking at. Cadel Evans, I believe he would like to move up a little bit higher than his third place in the overall standings. He only needs 16 seconds to leap over Michael Rogers, who's done a lot of pacemaking for Bradley Wiggins. 42 kilometers to go, just inside of 2 minutes. That's 26 miles of racing. It really is a dramatic part of Europe, this, isn't it, Bob?
Absolutely spectacular scenery. The bike racers won't have time to look around until they've retired and cover the race for television, perhaps from their respective countries. But for today, Cadel Evans, you know, last year he was second in the Dauphiné, 1 minute 22 seconds slower than Bradley Wiggins. This year he's third, 1 minute 30 seconds slower. That's a pretty good result for Cadel Evans. Of course, last year after being second to Wiggins, he won the Tour de France. So I think that this race has been a great preparation race for Cadel Evans to go into the Tour de France with great morale and some solid fitness.
Yeah, I think, Bob, I would give advantage to the riders who've come here to the Criterium du Dauphine because they've had a chance at riding that time trial over the distance, and they've also had a chance of riding over a similar Tour de France stage. Well, I can't quite get in there to hear exactly what is going on there, but the rider in the car there is Thomas Vogler. He abandoned a little bit earlier on the stage. He's offering some advice. Okay, got it. He said, tell me on the radio, because I don't think he's too happy sitting at the back end of the group here. He wants to be in the slipstream with the other riders with him. So obviously Thomas Voeckler giving a little bit of insight today.
Well, very interesting to have Voeckler coaching you from the car when he was in the race at the start of the stage.
Well, the Michelob Ultra Athlete profile today is the man he was just talking to, Pierre Rolland, who was a major revelation last year's season.
One of the big new stars of French cycling. They have a great group of young athletes coming to the front of international cycling. Of course, the French haven't won the Tour de France since way back in 1985. Maybe that man, Pierre Rolland, will be the one to do it. Best young rider last year in the Tour and winner of the Alpe d'Huez stage, the Queen stage of last year's Tour de France.
I'll give you a little bit of historical information there, Bob. In 1985, when the Tour de France was won the last time by the French, but it went over the Col de Corbier. It finished in Morzine. The winner at the Avoriaz ski resort was none other than Lucho Herrera, ahead of Bernard Hinault.
Another group of riders from Colombia coming up to follow the success of the great Colombians of the first wave in the 80s. Now the new wave of riders, including Quintana, who won yesterday's stage in a storming ride, dominated the proceedings in the last climb of the day and did a great descent after the Jouplan, the last climb, into the town of Morzine. Great group of Colombian riders coming up to the fore now. They'll have some big stars in the mountains in the years to come from Colombia and France as well.
The Abbey de Abondon, so that will be not too far away from the finishing line. It's a 12th century abbey if you get a chance to visit that, and it was been built onto and added onto right up until the 1500s. These are the leading break of 8 riders. Bob, a lot of riders today probably trying to show themselves to their team managers, because obviously a guy like Sylvain Chavanel, he's just trying to win the stage. He's almost certainly to get into the Tour de France team, but for some of these other guys, maybe even Jaroslav Popovic has a chance to say to Johan Brunel, excuse me, can I have a ride in the Tour this year?
He has been the best young rider in the Tour de France in his career previously, but it's not guaranteed that Jaroslav Popovic will be invited to the Tour de France for the Radio Shack squad. And Johan Brunel saying before the Dauphiné started, there's only one spot that's guaranteed. That's Fabien Cancellara. He's come back onto good form after second place in the prologue at the start of the Tour of Switzerland yesterday. But the Frank and Andy Schleck, still big question marks for the Radio Shack squad. And that'll be very intriguing to see who exactly Radio Shack brings to the Tour de France this summer.
Well, that's interesting as well, because a lot of the team managers, Bob, that we've talked to during the course of this week have said that they're leaving the Dauphiné very quickly after the race is over to go across to Switzerland to see what the riders are going like in Switzerland. And funnily enough, in the Tour of Switzerland, the finish in Verbier is only 40 miles away from the finish of the Dauphiné in Châtel.
Just a couple of countries and a few winding miles of mountain roads in between the two finish towns. But as the crow flies, about an hour and a half distance, so pretty close. You can go and spy on the riders in the Tour de Suisse if you have the energy after the Dauphiné. But it's been a very tough week of racing. Almost every day except one, stage number 3, has been in the mountains, and it's been a great stage race. I think you're right about it being the perfect preparation for the Tour de France.
Well, if you see the River Durance going the other way, although it doesn't look as if this road's going uphill, this is a long, slight drag until we start to get ourselves to the start of the next big climb of the day. And that climb, of course, is the Col de Corbier. It's a very difficult climb, and as you said, Bob, maybe more important on the descent, and that's where Cadel Evans tends to excel. I have a feeling, because of his pride, Cadel Evans would like to move up at least to second place overall, so he will try something.
Well, Team Sky has been absolutely perfect throughout this race. They had one lapse of concentration, and Cadel Evans used that advantage to break away with his teammate George Hincapie. Of course, Bradley Wiggins closed that off himself, so when the team has faltered, Wiggins has been able to pick up the pieces.
Well, as we look at the 8 men, their lead starting to crumble a fraction. Coming up shortly, start to get back into the hills. Tonight we've got more cycling at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. The Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with Stage 2 of the Tour of Switzerland. That's 10 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the NBC Sports Network. And again, Bob, very much like here at the Criterium du Dauphine, the Tour of Switzerland finishes a hilltop finish into the ski resort of Verbier. This is the start of the next climb of the day. There are still 3 climbs to go. This is the Côte de la Vernaz. After that, we go straight onto the Col de Corbier, and at 22 kilometers to go. And then they head up to the final climb of the day, which itself is tagged as a 3rd category climb. 5 big climbs on the day.
Well, Jose Sarmiento is going to go out the winner of the King of the Mountains competition, commanding lead in that. Another one of the Colombian stars on the rise in professional cycling today. These men will get the points for this Category 2 climb. There's a Category 1, and of course the finish climb to Châtel.
Well, in fact, you can see Team Katusha now starting to take an interest in the pacemaking at the front end of the main field, and I wonder if that's for their little sprinter Daniel Moreno, because he could very well be thinking that he could survive over the slopes of this next climb of the day.
Danny Moreno, winner of Stage 2. Great little acceleration to the line to beat maybe the more fancy riders in the field. But Danny Moreno, very good bike racer. A little bit overshadowed on the Katusha squad. He's from Spain, just like Joaquin Rodriguez is. Joaquin Rodriguez, second in the Giro d'Italia, but he had the lead in the Giro the last half of the whole bike race, and it was taken away from him by Canadian on the Garmin squad, Ryder Hagedal, on the last day. Danny Moreno unable to go for results in the Giro d'Italia. He was there, but he was working for Joaquin Rodriguez throughout the Giro.
Right, watch the right-hand bend here now, because this is the start of the next climb of the day. And Moreno, although he's I reckon he's a very explosive rider, this is the sort of finish today that would suit him. It's certainly, definitely a Joaquin Rodriguez type of finish. But to get there, you've got to go over to Col de Corbier first.
Corbier will be on the horizon. 3.2 kilometers. This is a Category 2. That tells us it's probably a pretty steep little climb. Category 2 of generally a little bit longer climb. HC is the hardest climbs. H1, Category 1, the second hardest, and Category 2, the third hardest. There's some very tough Category 2 climbs in France, especially during the Tour de France and the Dauphiné.
You know, just looking at these riders from BMC Racing in the red and black jerseys, Bob, I've just got that canny feeling that Cadel Evans is going to try something here this afternoon. And I wonder, Christophe Lemouvel is the rider on the right-hand side, and Garmin Barracuda stripped the blue and white there. I wonder if he's got into this breakaway today because he's trying to convince Jonathan Vaughters to take him through to the Tour de France.
Christophe Lemouvel making the break for the Garmin squad. French rider on the American team, would dearly love to do the Tour de France. Garmin, they had an absolutely spectacular Tour de France last year. They won the team time trial, and that set into motion great results throughout the stage race. They got a stage win, 2 stage wins, also from Thor Hushovd.
No, this is setting the pace on the front to Stijn Vandenberg. He's a big man from Belgium. The rest of the guys just sitting there, allowing him to take the pacemaking. This is a little bit of an eye-opener for these guys, Bob, because you can just see that these are not the roads of Switzerland, are they? These are very, very difficult roads. Small and narrow and a little gravelly surface.
Terrible surface. It makes you feel like your tires are glued to the street. And this is Luis Angel Mate from the Cofidis squad. We saw him hunting King of the Mountain points in the Paris-Nice stage race earlier in the season, also in the breakaway on stage number 2 here in the Dauphiné, putting in a little bit of an attack here. It's a long way to the finish line. Also, the peloton is right behind Luis Angel Mate, but he's feeling good going up the road. 1 minute 30 seconds is the deficit Mate's facing to this group of 8 men in the front of the bike race.
Well, at the moment, I have to say, Team Sky are they're having an easy ride on the day because they're seeing all the other teams doing the pacemaking, which has been them to do up until this moment, but it's the last chance for anybody to try and dethrone Bradley Wiggins today.
Just at the front of this breakaway, it looks like Jerome Capel making the tempo. Pierre Rolland able to cover that, but gaps starting to open up here. Christophe Lemouvel having a tough time marking that acceleration, and this is a tough little climb. And Stijn Vandenberg now in big trouble at the back.
Well, you know, those guys that we're looking at, those are the hopefuls of France for the Tour de France coming up soon. Pierre Rolland, very good bike rider, got himself a stage victory in the Tour de France last year, one of the best stages anyone he could think about winning, and that, of course, was the Alpe d'Huez, and it has now, Bob, started to split up this race.
And it has split up the breakaway. Stijn Vandenberg, a helper of Tom Bonen in the Classics this spring when Bonen won Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, tailed off the front of the breakaway.
The main field now starting to snake its way up the Côte de la Vernaz on these little hairpin bends, and that gives you an idea of what the descent is going to be like off this climb as well. Very tricky, very narrow, but there's a lot of teams now taking an interest in taking the pacemaking. Bradley Wiggins riding very close up to the front end of the jersey there in about 7th or 8th position in his yellow jersey, just keeping an eye on affairs.
One teammate for Bradley Wiggins just in front of him, as we see Stijn Vandenberg continue to make his backwards march towards the peloton. The gap down now, 123 to our leaders from the Bradley Wiggins group. Bradley Wiggins very attentive so far in today's stage, leaving nothing to chance.
Well, Popovic popping back to the main field as well, and look how quickly that time gap now is starting to come down with the serious interest that the peloton are taking in this group of breakaways. Popovic, will he make the Tour de France selection of Radio Shack Nissan Trek? Well, we know that probably towards the end of the Tour of Switzerland at the end of next week. Everybody wondering if they're going to make the selection and if they're going to make the cut. I reckon one man from this group will, the man in the red, white and blue, French national champion Sylvain Chavanel, a title which he has to defend next week, 1 week before the start of the Tour de France.
Traditionally in Europe, the national championships always 1 week before the Tour starts.
Yes, they certainly are, but at the moment we're not there yet. We're here in the Criterium du Dauphine. We'll take a short break, a lot more mountains to come. As we join the 3 leaders now, 1 kilometre to go to the top of this climb, the second category climb, the Côte de la Vernaz. These are men that we saw ride exceptionally well in the Tour de France last year. On the front there, we're just looking at Jérôme Coppel, 13th overall in the Tour de France. He had good success in the early part of this season as well, because he won himself the Étoile de Bessèges, but he's much better known as an individual time trialist. Louis Vistre, he finished 2nd overall in Paris-Nice. He's the rider at the back for the Vacances Soleil team in the blue and white jersey. Then stuck in the middle, Pierre Rolland.
Louis Westra put Bradley Wiggins under a tremendous amount of pressure in Paris-Nice earlier this year. He won the stage at the Collet, Laurent Jalabert to the Aerodrome of Mantes, and then he did an incredible time trial on the Col d'Ez to put Bradley Wiggins into tremendous amounts of difficulty. Wiggins was able to defend that race leader's jersey, but it was a very tough week of racing for Bradley Wiggins to start off his racing this year in France, in Paris-Nice.
Well, this is Martin Jalinghi of Team Rabobank. He seems to be having a little bit of pressure on him because of the speed we're starting to see on this climb of the Côte de la Vernaz, and all of this now is a complete change of scene. It's the Team Katusha, the Russian team, must be thinking about their man Moreno down towards the end.
Well, teammates of Sky, BMC, teammates of Bradley Wiggins from Sky and Cadel Evans of BMC have done the work throughout the stage to keep the breakaway honest. That gap came down within 1 minute and 30 seconds before the start of this last climb. Now Katusha's come to the front, hoping for something from their rider, perhaps Danny Moreno for the stage. Explosive rider, got a great kick on, especially after a tough mountain stage with a hard climb to the finish, and that's exactly the profile of today's stage.
Well, it certainly is. It's a very difficult finish up towards the end of the race into Châtel, and it's a beautiful part of France as well. These 3 leaders now, I think they may well start to survive a little bit longer, because these 3 guys are very good climbers. We're now looking at the main field, coming past that 1 kilometre to go sign, moving right up to the front. We've got all of the riders still sitting in the second row from BMC Racing. I reckon we might see a move from Cadel Evans, Bob, on the next climb of the day, because that is a very tough first category climb, the Col du Corbier.
Well, for Jérôme Coppel, Pierre Rolland and Louis Westra, it's all about the stage win. Jérôme Coppel could move up some places if the status quo remains the same from this breakaway. He starts the day in 15th. That's a pretty good result, but a whopping 4 minutes and 39 seconds behind Bradley Wiggins. Bradley Wiggins has dominated the Dauphiné this year, even more emphatically than he did last year. He will have great form and confidence going into the Tour de France if he's able to finish it off on the finish into Châtel today.
You're right, actually, Bob, because last year on a couple of occasions in the Criterium du Dauphine, Bradley Wiggins was put under serious pressure in the mountains, but since then he's changed his training program. In fact, he's brought in an Australian swimmer teacher from the Australian Institute for Sport and changed his training method completely. As we go over the top of this climb, there's no challenge there. Jérôme Coppel is going to get himself maximum points, but behind, what's more important to me is what's going to happen in that group with Cadel Evans.
This is Alessandro Vanotti from the Liquigas Cannondale squad. Good little maneuver here within sight of the finish of this climb. This is a very tough Category 2 climb before the last big climb of the day. That's a Category 1 climb to come in just a few kilometers. We're getting into the very last miles of the bike race. Only 17 miles to go. But this is a tough little attack by Vanotti and catching right up to the wheel of the man in the breakaway, but was just tailed off moments ago.
Well, Alessandro Vanotti's been a professional since 2004. He's only won 1 race to my credit, and that was way back in 2007 when he won a stage of the Settimana Ciclista Lombardia. But, you know, if you move away towards the top of a climb like this, and it's a technical descent and you're on your own, it gives you an advantage.
He's hoping perhaps for some riders to join him on this raid. I don't think you could hold the field off by yourself. That's a pretty big expectation in modern cycling today. Team Sky has done incredible amounts of tempo to keep Bradley Wiggins out of trouble and all of the breakaways neutralized. But perhaps Vanotti sensing a moment where they will conserve the yellow jersey. He'll have a chance to slip up the road. I don't think they'll forget about him. They might have in the past before race radios, but in this day and age, that won't happen.
Big man there, number 201, that's John Degenkolb. He was hoping to get himself a stage victory on the only flat stage of the race. And poor old man, he actually had a flat tire inside of the last 3 kilometers.
That happened a couple of times, and that is bad luck for the man from the Argos team, new team on the block. They were able to do the Tour de France a couple of years ago, Skill Shimano, and they've been invited to come back this year. And so they have some good sprinters. Hopefully his luck will hold a little bit better in the Tour de France.
Well, that's what they're hoping, and this is Vanotti now trying to move away. Another little move coming from Europe car. I think it looked like the shape of Anthony Charteau, the winner formerly of the King of the Mountains classification at the Tour de France.
Top of the climb here for the peloton now. Luis Angel Mate is just up the front with the Cofidis colors on his shoulders. He was joined by Alessandro Venati. If they can catch the 3 men that are in the very front of the bike race, that's a powerful breakaway as well.
Well, I'm a bit surprised to see John Degenkolb surviving and staying in the main field because, you know, this is a very tough climb and he is one of the fastest sprinters in the world at the moment. Moving a little bit further up the road, we're now looking at 32 kilometers to go to the finish. That's 19 miles of racing. And all of a sudden, Bob, I think because the numbers in the breakaway have been reduced, we've got 3 guys, probably the 3 strongest guys from that breakaway. They're now starting to build up their advantage again because they're 1 minute and 51 seconds now ahead of the yellow jersey group. Well, as Louis Vistre takes a little bit more food on board, the next climb of the day is going to be the Col du Corbier. Well, welcome back now. 32 kilometers to go to the finish, and the advantage of the 3 leaders now starting to stretch out, putting even more pressure onto the main field. They're lining themselves up for the next climb of the day. As we look at the main field, they are going down this descent very rapidly indeed, but the next climb of the day is 7.7 kilometers long, or almost 5 miles, with an average gradient of 7.3%.
20 miles to go. The gap increasing to the breakaway from the top of that last climb. 1:50 seconds now. Should take just over an hour to finish off this stage. The breakaway doing a good job. The 3 strongest men have come to the front of that break. Jerome Capel and Louis Westra, as well as Pierre Roland, and they are having a great chance at a stage win now. Chased hard in the front of the peloton. The Katusha squad is still on the front.
You might notice just moving up into 3rd position there, that's George Hincapie. Obviously, these guys from BMC Racing are waiting to set something up for Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans starts the day in 3rd place in the overall standings. I think he's looking for better. I think he wants to finish 2nd if he can, and to do that, he's going to have to get 16 seconds lead over Mick Rogers, who's sitting in 2nd place at the overall standings at the start of the day. But Team Sky, Bob, for them, the most important thing is to make sure they get the overall win. This is a man coming back. This is Perrault, and he's a former mountain biker, and he's just been selected for the Olympic Games for London to participate in the mountain bike there.
Well, Jean-Christophe Perrault, an interesting story, coming as he had done from a professional mountain biking career. Started his road career quite late, 30 years old, before he started to do serious road races in the professional level. And he's on the AG2R squad. He's put an attack on this very twisting descent. Not very technical, good smooth roads it looked like. But Perrault taking that moment to try to get across to the attackers.
Well, the main field here now is getting stretched out into a very big long line as we look here at number 61. Rode the Tour de France last year and rode exceptionally well and finished 9th in the Tour de France, getting himself inside of the top 10. In fact, Bobby's trying to get himself back into the main field here. I think he's had a mechanical incident, but the way he's going downhill, that obviously has given him the skill, the acrobatic skill that you learn from riding mountain bikes.
Fairly rare amongst climbers. He's also a fairly proficient time trialist, sort of in the mode of Alberto Contador. Alberto Contador dominating the climbs and his successes in the Grand Tours, and also winning some time trials along the way.
Just noticed the yellow jersey on the shoulders there of Bradley Wiggins. He's moved himself right up to the front end of this race. He knows he's just got 18 more miles, Bob, to win this race for the 2nd year in succession. That's a pretty mean feat for a British rider, because when he won it last year, a British rider hadn't won the Criterium du Dauphine since the 1960s, when it was won by Brian Robinson.
And never has a Brit won twice in a row, and that's also quite rare in the history of the Dauphiné. It doesn't happen very often that you're that consistent year in and year out in the same race. Very different course from last year, much more mountainous this year, and a long, flat 53-kilometer time trial. Also, Bradley Wiggins has taken them all in his stride. His team manager, Sean Yates, saying in the press he's not at top form even. That has to be pretty fearsome for a guy like Cadel Evans. If Bradley Wiggins is not at his best and he's dominating all the races he's participated in so far this year, well, that's a little bit frightening for the Tour de France moving forward.
But Bob, is it psychological blows that he's throwing to the opposition here, to guys like Cadel Evans, saying, I might have got rid of you a couple of times in the time trial this week, and I might be able to stay with you on the climbs, and I'm not at my best yet.
Well, yes, probably some gamesmanship involved. You wouldn't expect the team manager to say something like, he's peaked, everybody. He won't be doing good in the Tour de France.
No, but I tell you what, when Sean Yates does say something like that, he's a very respectable bike rider himself. He was a very respectable bike rider himself. Wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France back in 1994. And he knows exactly how to get into the mind of his riders. But I can tell you something, we are starting to pick up some rather serious pace at the front end of this main field. A lot of red and black jerseys. We're not too far away now, Bob. I make it about 1.5 kilometers before the start of this next climb of the day, the 5-mile climb up to the top of the Col du Corbier. It's a climb that peaks out at about 1,500 meters in altitude. Very difficult indeed, as we look down there to the little Lac du Joty. The main field will start this climb, and I think we will see a little bit of an explosion in the peloton this time, because the pressure now has really started to come on. As we look down at that long line stretching out, they're all positioning themselves to make sure they make the corner in the best position possible. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be on the climb. Fourth running of the Criterium du Dauphine, the 7th and final stage between Morzine and Châtel, and we're currently sitting on a 3-man breakaway with an almost 2-minute advantage over the front end of the main field, who are now approaching this penultimate climb of the day, the Col du Corbier. BMC Racing have been very prominent at the front end of this main field here this afternoon. This is the big Michael Shaw, a big strong tank of a man who is really trying to toughen this race up. They're obviously planning something, Bob, for Cadel Evans. He's not the kind of guy who will go down without a fight.
Cadel Evans, one of the most aggressive bike racers currently racing, always on the attack. It's great to see him descending like a madman on yesterday's stage into Morzine. Didn't seem to be too dangerous, although if you're trying to catch up to him or follow him, some chances would have had to be taken. Cadel Evans putting pressure on Team Sky, the only man really to be a challenge to Bradley Wiggins this week so far.
Well, these are the three leaders, Pierre Roland, Jérôme Coppel in this, and the Sour-Sojazun. He's the rider in the front position. Louis Vistre just sitting in the back in third place. But Bob, just coming back to Cadel Evans, you know, a few years ago, before he won the World Championship title, he was always dubbed as a rider who never attacked, and all of a sudden something seemed to change with his mentality.
Cadel Evans started his career as a mountain bike racer. He was the very best in the world during his career then. Could never, however, close off the season by winning the world title. When he was finally able to do that as a road racer, it became a different athlete, much more aggressive, and has no qualms about attacking.
This is Jérôme Pinot. He's a man who'd be hoping to get a position in the French Omega Pharma Quick Step team a little bit later on in the season. For all of the French riders who are riding for overseas or foreign teams, they want to do everything they can to make selection for the Tour de France.
Also, it gives teams incentive to hire French racers. That's always good for the team that's going into the Tour de France from whatever country they're from, to have some French riders in their roster in the Tour de France.
Well, these three riders, the three riders who slipped away over the top of the other climb of the day, the Côte de la Vernaz. In the middle there is Anthony Charteau, a former winner of the Tour de Langkawi, a race in Malaysia, but still a lot of pressure at the front end of this group is being put on by the riders from Team Katusha. They must be trying to set this up for their man Daniel Moreno, and of course sitting in the second row there, big George Hincapie in third position. He's doing a lot of work today to set something up for Cadel Evans, who will, I'm sure, try another move.
Well, George Hincapie, one of the most experienced professionals in the whole sport, looking at doing the Tour de France for the 17th time in his career in just a couple of weeks' time. Big George Hincapie, credit to the sport, one of the best racers and American to boot.
Well, a lot of damage is now being done in this main peloton here this afternoon. It's because of the pressure of all of the guys coming to the front end of the main field. You see the Japanese national champion slipping backwards there. That's Yukihiro Doi. He's been pretty aggressive throughout the whole of this race. We're getting towards the end, though, Bob, of a very long week of racing. 8 days of racing here at the Dauphiné. There's not been one easy stage.
Not an easy stage. The long time trial was very difficult. 53 kilometers. Took over an hour for the winner, Bradley Wiggins. Bradley Wiggins clobbering the field in that long time trial. And these 3 days of the mountains, those are what put the test of Bradley Wiggins, the team to the test of Bradley Wiggins. Team Sky, they've answered every challenge so far.
Well, this is Sammy Sanchez here. Now, we heard a couple of days ago that he'd abandoned. In fact, and after that, when we looked at the results, we saw his name was still there. A lot of people felt that he might have abandoned because he had some damaged ribs and he was trying to get himself through this race. He's looking forward to the Tour de France. Obviously, he's managed to get himself through the Dauphiné. The golden helmet you might have seen there was in significance of him winning the Olympic Games in Beijing.
He has soldiered on throughout the Dauphiné to get to the finish line because Sammy Sanchez knows it's the most important race for him to get ready for the Tour de France. Probably would have dropped out of a number of races in the season, but this one he's hung tough. He will get to the finish line.
16 miles to go.
Fans American Classic is giving you the chance to be part of the American Classic Fan Club this July during the tour on NBC Sports Network. If you were chosen, Bob Roll will tell everyone why you deserve to be featured as the American Classic Fan of the Day. Plus, you'll win great American Classic prizes. Just visit the American Classic on Facebook and enter today.
So this is the start of the climb proper for the three leaders. They've lost a little bit of their advantage, 1 minute and 35 seconds now. We're looking at just about 16 miles to go to the finish. And these three riders in this group, Bob, they're all fairly good climbers, but I don't think they can survive because the main field, I think, is going to have a real showdown.
You can see that these kilometers tick by ever so slowly towards the finish line because of these hard mountains and tiny roads. Three men, aerodynamically speaking, a similar advantage to what the peloton has because the roads are so mountainous, but the inertia of the field on the descents automatically closes the gap down. Almost impossible for these guys to stay away, but you never know. Pierre Rolland, Jerome Capel, Louis Westra, all of them very competent and winning professionals in their career. This is a handy little breakaway. The peloton has never given these guys very much of an advantage. Even when they're in a bigger breakaway throughout the stage, they've kept them close. Now the gap is down to 1 minute and 30 seconds. It'd be very tough to stay away to the finish line.
Well, you know, if Cadel Evans wants to try and win this bike race, Bob, he's got to do it on this climb. He has to try and get the gap. He has to try and make a move here because I think it's just a little bit too easy, the final climb of the day, to make that move. It's in this section now over the next 6 or 7 miles that if he wants to win the Dauphiné this year, if he wants to move up to second place in the overall standings, it's here he has to make his move.
He has to put in an attack. You're absolutely right. 1 minute 36 is the gap. It's getting too close to the finish line to wait until that last climb, and it's not as selective as this hill. So Cadel Evans needs to attack, put Bradley Wiggins under pressure, also isolate him from his teammates, and then he might have a chance on the next descent of this steep climb, and then the little bit of a false flat and climb Category 3 to finish off today's stage and finish off the Dauphiné.
And moving forward to the Tour de France for Cadel Evans, he's got to try and see where the weak spots are for Bradley Wiggins. If the only place to attack him is on the downhill, well, then that's what he's got to do, and he'll try and find that out in a few moments' time.
He's taken almost every effort or every opportunity to go ahead and do that. The Col of the Grand Colombier, he did get a gap with a couple of teammates. Bradley Wiggins had to chase Cadel Evans down by himself after his teammates were caught napping in the middle of the field. It took them a long time to get reorganized. You're absolutely right, Paul. That might be the only way to dislodge Bradley Wiggins from the from the lead here and the Tour de France this summer.
Well, you might have noticed the blackboard there. Well, that tells the riders you've got a three-man breakaway, and there are a number of riders part way across the gap. Looking here, this is number 8 for Team Sky. This is Konstantin Sitsu. Very good bike rider in his own right. That's Richie Porte in the black jersey, just in front of the yellow jersey of Bradley Wiggins. Bob, what about that pedaling style?
Absolutely perfect, just like a sewing machine. A metronome. He's great in the time trials, and he's also lost some kilos over the years as a professional, and he's become very proficient in the mountains as well. A little bit in the mold of Miguel Indurain. Dominate the time trials, hold your own in the mountains, and you win big-time bike races. Interestingly, if he goes out the winner of the Dauphiné this year, it'll be 2 times in a row. A number of riders have done that in the past. Also, the only race that the men that have won at least 5 Tours de France's that have the similar race win here is this is the Dauphiné.
Well, that's Cécile Chavanel getting picked up. He was in that early morning breakaway. The man who is setting the tempo on the front end of the peloton right now is 38-year-old George Hincapie. I'm saying 38 because he turns 39 years of age at the end of this month, and he finished this year, set a record. He's already set a record this year by finishing the Tour of Flanders for the 17th time. It's unbelievable, and he's still got the youth and enthusiasm of when he was racing as a junior cyclist.
Incredibly consistent, great in the classics, solid time trialist. He's won mountain stage in the Tour de France. Looking forward to doing the Tour for the 17th time in just a couple of weeks. He is the teammate of Cadel Evans, also very calm. So when you have Big George in your team, it's easy to be successful. He keeps everything on the down low, nice and steady, nice and calm. And for a rider like Cadel Evans, who maybe gets a little bit nervous and has done in his career in the past, he's the perfect teammate to have.
Well, he's trying to toughen the race up, George Hincapie, I have to say, to set something up for his own man, Cadel Evans. While there's a little bit of a flurry of activity here at the front, little acceleration just to check and test the legs of the other guys, but you can see there we're not going anywhere at the moment. The responses have come straight back. We're looking now at about 4 kilometers to the top of this climb, and the gap's starting to come down, Bob. 1 minute and 16 seconds. I wonder if they'll survive.
Pretty impressive riding by George Hincapie to continue to reduce this gap. Looked like Pierre Rolland put in a little bit of an acceleration. Jerome Capel and Louis Westra were able to do that. Louis Westra comes from Holland. I've always been amazed at the tactical acumen of the Dutch riders, asking perhaps Roland, excuse me, you're attacking a long way to the finish line. It's much better if we work together, especially considering the long, gradually uphill climb to the finish.
Well, just got an indication there. The average gradient of this climb is about 7.5%, but every now and again it kicks up to 10%. And I think I'd agree with you there, Bob. If these guys want to survive, rather than trying to attack each other one by one, they need to work together and cooperate until they get to the final climb of the day. But looks like George has taken a back seat for a little while. He's asking Team Katusha now to come forward and let them do the pacemaking. But all of the time, you never see Bradley Wiggins in the yellow jersey very far from the front end of this pack.
Well, look at the team that Sky has brought to the Dauphiné. Chris Froome, Edvald Boasson-Hagen, Mike Rogers, who's in second place in the overall standings. Team Sky has done no wrong in the Dauphiné yet.
Well, if we look at the three leaders here, Bob, it does beg the question. The Dauphiné race here is teams made up of 8 riders. 9 go through to the Tour de France. I wonder if we're looking at Team Sky's Tour de France time here, plus Mark Cavendish.
Well, that would be a very handy squad for the Tour de France. They've proven themselves in the Dauphiné, and Mark Cavendish has proven himself in the Tour de France. He's already won 20 stages, perhaps looking at the outright record held by Eddy Merckx.
Yes, and that stands at 34 individual stage wins, a mixture of time trials, prologues, and mountain stages too. Merckx, the most dominant rider, I would think, of all time.
Of all time in the sport of cycling, the greatest is Eddy Merckx in the Tour de France. It's an American, Lance Armstrong. He himself has won the Dauphiné twice in his career, and twice in a row, by the way. And Lance Armstrong, the last American to have won this race, the Dauphiné.
Well, 25 kilometers to go now exactly, and that's coming down to around about 15 miles of racing for the 3 leaders. They do know there are 1 or 2 riders partway across the gap. What they're trying to do is survive. The damage is still being done at the back end of the main field. Arrière du peloton is the back end of the main field. Nicky Sorensen going backwards here for Team Saxo Bank, wearing number 147, former stage winner at the Tour de France.
Mate off the front, into the peloton, and now off the back, suffering for the final of the stage.
Well, it's starting to hot up here on the final day of the Criterium du Dauphine, as everyone wants to get the picture of the man who may win the stage. But we want to know who is going to win the bike race overall. Will it be Bradley Wiggins, or will there be a challenge for Cadel Evans? The Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with a stage between Morzine and La Châtel, 77 miles in the eastern part of France. I'm Paul Scher, and alongside me is Bob Roll. Bob, this is the real crunch now for Cadel Evans. We're on this penultimate climb of the day, the Col du Corbier, the summit of which is just 20 kilometers to go to the finish.
Well, he can put some more pressure on Bradley Wiggins by attacking on perhaps this climb. Seems to be content to let his teammates set the tempo as we get near the top of this second to last climb. And the last real difficulty of this year's Dauphiné, Cadel Evans, if he's going to get some of the time back, he needs to attack pretty soon.
Well, this is Simone Stortoni from Team Lampre. He's having a little dig at the front end of the main field. And you notice, Bob, that nobody makes any moves at all. The big contenders, they're waiting for the big move, and they're waiting to see whether or not Cadel Evans will make an attack. And if he does, you will see fireworks.
Joined by Mikel Charel from the AG2R squad. BMC still on the front. The Sky Riders still starting to rotate towards the front now. There's the front of the peloton. But now this is a little bit bigger group now. A lot of attacks going. This looks like Anthony Charteau again having another try.
Yeah, well, he had a very nasty accident a couple of seasons ago, and he had to fight his way right back to the top end of the sport, having won himself the King of the Mountains competition. In fact, this year he started off with a great victory in the Tropical Amisa Bongo, and that's in Gabon, by the way, in Africa.
And look at the man in the green helmet there, right at the front of that breakaway, winner of the stage yesterday. That is Nairo Quintana on the attack again, joined by the Portuguese rider on the Radio Shack squad, Tiago Machado. This is a very serious little move here, trying to cut into the lead of the 3 men in the front and putting pressure on the peloton and Bradley Wiggins, the race leader.
Well, Sylvain Chavanel has left all of his energy on the roads of the Criterium du Dauphiné here this afternoon. He's just going to have to make sure he can get himself up towards the finish line. There's a lot of action. I have to say, Bob, that was an impressive ride by that Colombian rider, Nairo Quintana, yesterday from Movistar. And I believe, if we're not mistaken, I have a funny feeling that we might be seeing a little move here by Vincenzo Nibali.
Nibali, he's hovering at the front of the peloton, but look at this Quintana accelerating, dropping all the riders that tried to go with him. They're getting near the top of the climb. Quick look over the shoulder. hey, Nairo, you got a gap. Keep on going hard. Only Machado been able to match at the moment.
I'll tell you one thing, Bob. The Colombian riders, looking at the Colombian riders from the Amgen Tour of California to this race, it reminds you of the 1980s and the great Lucho Herrera or Fabio Parra. They have no fear at all of the mountains. This is not a mountain to a Colombian. The climbs that they have there can be as much as 25 to 30 miles long.
That's one of the tricks the Colombian riders are. It's a challenge for them to sit in the peloton and mix it with the hardened men of European professional cycling. These climbs start generally at sea level and go up to high altitudes. In Colombia, they start at high altitudes and go to stratospheric altitudes. And Nairo Quintana, the latest in a long line of great climbers from Colombia.
Well, George Hincapie from Greenville, South Carolina, wearing number 13. Unlucky for some, but not for George Hincapie this year, as he's done all of the work that he needed to do to set something up for Cadel Evans here this afternoon. Nairo Quintana, the rider on the front there in the lime green jersey, Bob, a very aggressive bike rider, won himself in the early part of this season a race called the Tour of Murcia in the southern part of Spain.
Jerome Capel in the breakaway, also the winner last year of the Tour of Murcia, a very mountainous stage race, like you said, down in Spain.
Well, a little move going up to one of the riders from Green Edge. But now look at the front end of the peloton, because it is now being completely controlled by Team Sky. Rather interesting, Bob, to see that normally if you're the yellow jersey, you'd sit behind 3 or 4 of your riders. Wiggins seems to appreciate, maybe he just likes riding in second wheel.
Well, it depends on the momentum you're carrying as you move forward on the climb. Sometimes you prefer a little bit of the cooling effect by being a little bit closer to the front. So thermal regulation, also a part of the sport of cycling. Also strength versus weight, and Bradley Wiggins has seemed to solve those equations quite well.
Well, there's Cadel Evans in the green jersey. He's moving up to the front end of the main field. I wonder if he is waiting for a moment to try and launch an attack. That's Richie Porte in first position. A yellow jersey is on the shoulder there of Bradley Wiggins. He's just sitting pretty, waiting to see if anybody has the nerve, or if anybody will, or has the strength to attack.
I wonder if Cadel Evans has the strength to attack. He's sitting quite a ways back. If you're going to launch and be serious about something, you want to be as close to the front as you can do. Cadel Evans, you do have the element of surprise when you attack from a little bit behind, but not quite as far back from behind as Cadel is currently in the last shot we saw.
There's 1 kilometer to go to the summit, and look, all of a sudden the gap has gone inside of the 1 minute advantage. There's a big acceleration coming from the peloton in the main field, and on 191 there, that's Jérôme Coppel. He was a former under-23 time trial champion of France. He's just 25 years of age, but certainly, well, like a number of the other French riders, a big revelation at the Tour de France last year. There's Peter Weening over on the left-hand side. That was the rider from Green Edge. He's still hoping to win his selection for the Green Edge squad for this year's coming up Tour de France in the month of July.
Vincenzo Nibali, after some trouble in the mountains, finally looking a little bit better on the front of this breakaway, and this is very serious. Now here's the king of the mountain. He'll go out the winner of that competition. Another one of the great Colombians coming up, Jose Sarmiento, and his teammate Vincenzo Nibali enjoying a little bit better form in the Dauphiné on today's stage.
Yeah, but look at that. No panic on board the Sky Train Express. This is Weening making a little bit of a move now. That's a nice move by him. As I said, Bob, this guy is looking to get his selection for the Tour de France, formerly a member of the big Rabobank squad, taking the risk to pop across to, well, a long way across the oceans to Australia.
Adventurous man, Peter Weening, winner of a stage of the Tour de France a few years ago. Orica Green Edge is his squad, brand new team. They've had a great season so far. He's doing a good Dauphiné. He's 12th in the overall standings, 4 minutes slower so far than Bradley Wiggins, and that's a good attack. If I was Matt White, the manager of the Orica squad, I would give serious consideration to putting Peter Weening on my team for the Tour.
Well, I think he certainly will, and that's why Peter Weening has been riding the way he has here at the Criterium du Dauphine to try and get that selection. I tell you what, though, this man, Louis Vistre, is under a bit of pressure here this afternoon, Bob. It really is having to dig deep. He's only got to hang on for probably another 30 or 40 seconds to get over the top of the climb, and then he can recuperate a fraction before we start climbing again.
Oh, going deep in the pain cave there. Good riding to stay with his 2 companions in this breakaway. Louis Wistra just have a couple of 100 meters left before the top of this climb. Hopefully he'll be able to recuperate. If you're Louis Wistra, you want to try to sit on the wheels as long as you can, but not get dropped.
Well, you can see Team Sky there are allowing these breakaways to go clear one after the other. They form a small group at the front, but they've got their own tactic. And Bradley Wiggins said a couple of days ago to us, Bob, that they've been riding like this in Lanzarote. They've been riding like this in Mallorca. They've been actually getting themselves into an automatic system. And that's probably why Bradley Wiggins is enjoying his position in second place. He's got complete trust. If Richie Porte starts to fade a little bit, they'll get Chris Froome to come back from 3rd or 4th position, or Michael Rogers to come back. They are solid.
there's great cohesion within the team, and that's evident on the way they've ridden throughout the Dauphiné. They have one mission: keep Bradley Wiggins near the front. Bradley Wiggins did a great time trial to put himself in position to win, but it's his teammates and the cohesion that the team has and the way they work together that have kept him there in the yellow jersey. Only a few more kilometers for them, 22.9 kilometers. That's just about 13 miles of racing to go, and one last difficulty, a little kick up to the finish line in Châtel.
Well, Jérôme Coppel getting himself maximum points at the top of that climb once again. Well, look at this. All of a sudden, do you see the yellow jersey? This is Bradley Wiggins. Well, where's Cadel Evans?
Bradley Wiggins putting Cadel Evans on the defensive now, just sweeping up to this little breakaway. That's a pretty courageous maneuver by Bradley Wiggins. I'm not sure that will send panic, and the alarm bell should be ringing in the peloton now. You can see his teammates struggling to get back up to Bradley Wiggins' wheel.
There is Cadel Evans. Now he's been put on the back seat, hasn't he? He'd been caught out a little bit by that acceleration. A very similar tactic to the one that this man in the yellow jersey, Bradley Wiggins, did the other day. The accelerations by Wiggins has closed the whole race back up together. We can see the rider from Movistar going across the line in the front end of that group, Nairo Quintana. But look at that again, Bob. Once it's all started to come together, look at the number of Sky jerseys there.
Sky scrambling to get back to the front of this group. Bradley Wiggins not having that little breakaway. Quintana and Nibali really stamping his authority on at the top of this last very difficult climb. A little bit surprised to see Bradley Wiggins not following form, not following his teammates, just jumping across, neutralizing that attack by the Colombian Nairo Quintana.
Well, again, is it again, Bob, part of the psychological battle? He's trying to slap Cadel Evans around a little bit, saying, look, guys, I'm just sitting here. I can ride away from this bunch anytime that I want to. Now, having seen a move like that come from Bradley Wiggins, will Cadel Evans have a go on the descent?
Well, Cadel will have to close a little bit of a gap down. He had to scramble to get back into the front of the peloton. Here's our three leaders. If Cadel Evans is feeling frisky, now is just about his last chance to have an obstacle, and that's a descent this time, to dislodge Bradley Wiggins from his stranglehold on the yellow jersey as race leader.
Well, as we come down to just over 12.5 miles, the three leaders hold on to a 45-second advantage, and there's still more climbing to come. Don't forget, make a note, Saturday, June 30th, the NBC Sports Network begins the coverage of the Tour de France, cycling's most prestigious event. The Tour de France begins Saturday, June 30th on the NBC Sports Network. For the moment, we're in the Alps. We are in France, and we are now on the descent of the penultimate climb of the day, the Col du Corbier. The race situation, three riders off the front as we get a whirly-turly view of the peloton from our helicopter.
Tough to be a bike racer if you suffer from vertigo. This is the descent, the last twisting obstacle to Bradley Wiggins' domination of this year's Dauphiné. Vincenzo Nibali on the attack there. And that is Nairo Quintana, the winner of yesterday's stage, just on his wheel.
Yeah, but Bradley Wiggins is not far away for the moment, but question mark is, where is the green jersey? Where is Cadel Evans? And will he make an attack like he did yesterday? Or is he just going to sit back now and wait to come back stronger in July?
A similar descent into Morzine at the end of yesterday's stage. Cadel Evans was right at the front of the peloton there, was able to get a little bit of a gap and press that advantage to the finish line. Well, he was quite a ways back at the top of this last big climb of the day, so I don't know if he's going to have a chance. He has to go through a lot of bodies before he can get to the wheel of Bradley Wiggins and put in an attack.
I think this is all psychology here, Bob. Vincenzo Nibali's had a hard time doing the Criterium du Dauphine. Now all of a sudden, on the last day, he's starting to feel good. He wants to test himself. That's what this race has been all about this year.
For Nibali, he had a pretty good time trial, and that's very encouraging because he's a great climber but not a great time trialist. But then consequently he suffered in the mountains, and he's trying to be consistent as he can, and this is his favorite terrain, the mountains. He's a great descender as well as climber. Vincenzo Nibali, the liquid gas Cannondale Italian and leader of that squad, and they will be working for him throughout the Tour de France, and perhaps some stage wins for his teammate who's starting his march to the Tour de France. That's Peter Sagan across the border in the Tour of Switzerland. 1-2 punch for the liquid gas Cannondale squad in the Tour de France. This man for the overall standings, and Peter Sagan, a great sprinter, winner of 5 stages of the Tour of California for the sprints.
Yeah, what I think, Bob, is interesting about this week's Criterium du Dauphine is we've seen a lot of young riders, 22, 23, 24 years of age. It's almost like the starting of the changing the guard again.
Well, they will be racing up to Verbier today. And as a young professional, this man, Vincenzo Nibali, on that stage in 2009 of the Tour de France, actually finished third behind Alberto Contador.
That's Jürgen van den Broek in first position there, just in front of Bradley Wiggins. Bradley Wiggins still got two teammates sitting behind him as they snail down. In fact, you see this final climb we just came over there, Bob, the Col de Corbière. It's had a serious effect on trimming down the size of the peloton.
Much smaller group now. John Degenkolb, a big sprinter, able to get over the last Category 3 climb of the day before, Category 2 climb, but that is not the case. A much smaller group. Here we see Louis Westra. Not sure if he's off the front or if he's off the back.
He's in third position here. He just wasn't able to get his body round those corners. The man putting the pressure on is Pierre Roland of Team Europe car. He's taken advantage of one or two of these technical little corners to open up a gap on the other guys with him. The man chasing now is Vincenzo Nibali, but his 41 seconds is all that separates the leading group of 3 riders from the yellow jersey of Bradley Wiggins.
Very tough to close the gap down on the leaders on a descent as twisty, turny, and technical as this, but Vincenzo Nibali is trying to do that. He's going from one side of the road to the next, just nailing the apex. Great descender, winner of the Vuelta a España, beautiful pedaling style, and great descending. This is textbook descending from the Italian on the Liquigas squad.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bob, that's an important fact as well, because some guys just cannot go downhill fast. Some guys love it. They've got the body, the position on the bike just allows them to smoothly and liquidly go around those corners, and some guys, they go around them in squares.
Also, it depends a little bit on how you're feeling on the day. If you're having a bad day, you can't even descend well, generally speaking. You hack your way through every corner and you continue to lose time. Cadel Evans was very smooth on yesterday's descent, but we haven't seen him on today's near the front of the affairs.
No, I think maybe Cadel has decided to call a truce here this afternoon. Now we've got 2 Frenchmen joining forces at the front end of the bike race. The 2 famous Frenchmen from the Tour de France last year, Pierre Roland, who was trying to get away again from Jérôme Coppel.
Well, he has distanced Louis Westra off the front of this breakaway. This man is in between the peloton and the 3 men up the road. That's Vincenzo Nibali. Pierre Roland putting Jérôme Coppel into difficulty, and they've already dropped Louis Westra, who was with them just moments ago.
Well, I tell you what, this man is using all of the road, and he certainly is trying to get across this gap. You can nail back a minute sometimes, Bob, if you're a good descender on a breakaway group on the downhill section of the course. I think this is for his morale here this afternoon. He's thinking, I can win this stage.
Well, he nailed that corner right there. Big right-hand bend onto the highway. This will lead into a long, gradual climb to the finishing town. 16 kilometers to go, just about 8 miles to the end of the bike race. Here's the peloton now. They've come back onto that big road again. Nibali will have the advantage on a technical descent like that, but the advantage will go back to the bigger group in the peloton as they chase these 2 leaders, Pierre Roland, Jérôme Coppel, Louis Westra, trying to get back on terms with our 2 leaders. He was just with them at the top of the last climb, but on the descent, they've dropped the Dutchman from the Vacances Soleil squad.
Well, these 2 Frenchmen, the man in the first position, 10th in the Tour de France last year, the man behind him, 13th in the Tour de France last year, and the stage victory to the top of the Alpe d'Huez for Pierre Roland. He's the man in the green jersey. We'll take another short break. When we come back, we'll be lining up for an exciting finish. The Nissan Ultimate Access Sweepstakes continues with the 3rd grand prize, which includes a trip for 2 to this year's USA Pro Cycling Challenge in Colorado. You'll also get inside access to Radio Shack Nissan Trek. Go to NBCSports.com/Ultimate Access to register and enter the code word COLO. That's COLO to join. As we get inside now, 10 miles to go to the finishing line. The 2 leaders, have got themselves an advantage of 55 seconds. They're still being chased by Louis Westra of Team Vacances Soleil. These riders had a little bit of a skirmish off the front on the descent, and they're about to get pulled back into the fold. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, what a bike rider he's been this week.
Very classy bike racer. He's won classics, he's won tour stages, very consistent. Also, he wins in every different type of terrain there is in bike racing time trials, big mountains, as well as fast sprint finishes. Great bike racer, a real asset to the Sky team. He's also been a tremendous helper to Bradley Wiggins throughout the week's racing.
Well, as you can see, these 2 Frenchmen now have joined forces at the front end of the race. And again, Bob, with the change, losing 1 guy from the breakaway, they've managed to push their advantage up once again to 1 minute and 3 seconds.
The peloton, yes, regrouping in this valley road before the dash to the line. Pierre Roland doing the brunt of the work, doing the maximum amount he's capable of. He's looking over his shoulder, asking Jérôme Coppel to please come around, looking at him. I think he's trying to decide decide, is he faking or he's incapable of doing the tempo required to stay away from the group? If he feels like he's too tired to help, he will go ahead and attack and try to win solo. And if you have a rider that can't contribute to the pacemaking, you have to drop him to have a chance to win the stage.
It all depends how the main field decide they want to race the final few kilometers here. We've got Vincenzo Nibali halfway across a gap at 38 seconds. If Vincenzo Nibali joins the two Frenchmen, I could see that breakaway group then succeeding. But who wants to chase it? And still, you know, Cadel Evans, I think, wants to do something. He's asked his riders, BMC Racing, to come to the front and set the tempo. He's probably going to try it on the final climb of the day. He needs 16 seconds to move up one more place in the overall standings.
And maybe he needs a little bit more morale going into the Tour de France, and a stage win here. It would be a second of the Dauphiné, and he has a great position on the podium. That might be a success when it looks like it could be a disaster the way Bradley Wiggins has dominated him in the time trials and the mountain stages.
Well, that's a 15 kilometre to go banner. That's inside of 10 miles for Vincenzo Nibali. He's looked very smooth going around that corner, but right on his tail is the main field. Bob, when we just looked at the two leaders a few moments ago, that the body language they were emanating to me showed me that they were actually pretty tired.
They looked tired indeed the last time we saw them. Pierre Rolland perhaps a little bit fresher, but both of them suffering the effects of a full week, hard week of racing and a long day in the breakaway.
Well, it's all down to the final slog now. We're setting ourselves up to an aggressive climb up to the finishing town of Châtel, which, by the way, is the largest internationally linked ski area in the world, with up to 400 miles of ski slopes in the winter months. Big challenge there, Bobby. That's a great. We said Wiestra there has now been joined by Vincenzo Nibali, having had a tough Amgen Tour of California. He's ridden and hung tough throughout the whole of the Criterium du Dauphine, but the man in second position there, a former winner of the Tour of Spain, he's trying to get himself some morale leading up to the month of July.
Vincenzo Nibali catching Louis Westra. Louis Westra pretty clever there. Might have sat up because he couldn't match the tempo of Pierre Rolland and try to rest for a little bit, get on the wheel of Vincenzo Nibali and have another chance at winning the stage. He still is in with a chance if he can stay away from this peloton and catch up to the two men that he was with formerly. He probably can't do that by himself, but with Vincenzo Nibali, he has a chance to catch back up.
Well, BMC want the stage victory here this afternoon. I don't think Philippe Gilbert is still in there, so it could only be for one man. That's the man who wears the green jersey. Look where he is. He's sat right on the wheel of Bradley Wiggins. That's not the way to be sitting if you want to attack him, but it keeps a good eye on the man who's ahead of you in the overall standings.
Well, that's a good wheel to be on. Bradley Wiggins, very consistent throughout the week of racing. I don't think he's gone further back in the field than the first 10 or 15 places throughout the week's racing. That takes concentration, not just talent, but you also have to place yourself in the right spot throughout a whole week of racing. That's very challenging to do, but Bradley Wiggins has been up to the challenge so far this week.
Well, the race situation now, you have the two leaders. Here they are. Pierre Rolland is the man there in the green jersey, just sitting in second position. Just in front of him is Jérôme Coppel. If they look over their shoulders, they'll get a chance to see the shadow of Vincenzo Nibali. Look at the face here on this young man from France, Pierre Rolland. He really is grimacing. He's trying to keep the big gear ticking over there because he knows looming on the horizon is glory. He knows behind him is a chasing peloton that will not give anybody freedom.
Well, the teammate of that man, Pierre Rolland, on the front of the bike race is Thomas Voeckler. Another of the big French stars is Sylvain Chavanel. But these two men, the stars of the future for French cycling, Pierre Rolland from Europcar and Jérôme Coppel, the Sauer team in the blue and white jersey.
Well, we're just inside a minute's advantage, and around 7 miles to go, we'll take another break. 7.5 miles of racing down to the finish line. 53 seconds is the advantage. Pierre Rolland and Jérôme Coppel are still leading a two-man chase group, including Vincenzo Nibali at around about 30 seconds. But the main field, there's different teams now coming to the front to try and nail these two riders back. I'd have to say, Bob, that I think Pierre Rolland is the stronger of these two.
Well, you don't win the Alpe d'Huez stage of the Tour de France without being an incredibly gifted bike racer. Pierre Rolland in a desperate struggle to get to the finish line. Jérôme Coppel is with him, but the peloton is right hot on their heels now. I think that gap is considerably less than the 47 seconds that's put up on the screen.
Well, I think I'd agree with that. Belfry Tower that you can see there, by the way, is very, very normal in this part of the world. The Haute-Savoie, you see many of those belfries in the air. And in fact, in the mountains, the clocks ring twice once just before the hour and once on the top of the hour, so that the shepherds in the mountains around can actually make sure that they've counted the right time.
And the bells tolling for the breakaway, perhaps, as we see the peloton now, a much smaller group in single file being led by the BMC team of the points leader, Cadel Evans.
Well, that's important as well, Bob, because Tony Galopin, who rides for Radio Shack Nissan, he would very much like to get himself some points ahead of Cadel Evans on the sprint up to the finish line. So we could see a big battle for Cadel. He's a proud bike rider. He'd love to finish off with a stage victory if he could, but otherwise he would like to get the points jersey competition sewn up.
Well, this is very strange. Nibali catching up to Louis Westra, second. They're behind the two men in the front. This is the second group out of the road, but now Louis Westra is putting time into Vincenzo Nibali. Don't often see that very often when a rider that's been in the breakaway gets caught from somebody that comes out of the peloton. Then the man that came out of the peloton has trouble even staying on his wheels. But Louis Westra, a big, powerful bike racer, and maybe he's recuperating from that mountain climb, and now he's feeling better, off in pursuit of these two men in the lead of the bike race, Pierre Rolland and Jerome Capel.
Well, as we approach 6 miles to go to the finish, the spread of the main part of the race, or the guys who can win the stage here this afternoon, is only 600 yards, Bob, if you convert it to 39 seconds.
Don't really see any chance of the breakaway staying away. Vincenzo Nibali by himself on the descent got very close to the breakaway, didn't quite close it all the way down. Here he is in between no man's land and the breakaway. But when the peloton, when they see the finish line, when they get nearby the finish line, well, the lead out for the sprint should wipe out that 39-second advantage.
Well, it all depends on the way the main field want to respond. I'm sure they want to pull this all back together for the final climb up to the summit of Châtel. And this man, who leads the points classification, is third overall, Cadel Evans, the defending champion. I wonder what it does to his brain, Bob, to see all of these riders from Team Sky lined up in front of him. Yes, he's got a couple of teammates there in second and third position trying to set it up for him. But it's all about the psychological battle we've seen all week for the two Tour de France contenders, Bradley Wiggins, who I have to say is now a serious contender, and Cadel Evans.
Well, as the finish line looms in the distant horizon for Cadel Evans, it becomes a very important finish. He's been able to distance Bradley Wiggins on the descents, but that's not the way you generally win big-time bike races, especially the Tour de France. You want to establish a little bit of superiority strength-wise on the uphill finish. So this is a very important stage for Cadel Evans to test his form, his fitness, and his resolve against an absolutely flying Bradley Wiggins as we go into the end of this stage and then the finish line, and then the Tour de France later on in the summer.
Well, it's now coming back down very seriously, very rapidly. It's about a half a minute, and half a minute is 500 yards. And when you see the main field in a long line like that, you know there's some serious pressure on the front end. There's Louis Westra. He's back in the fold now this afternoon. BMC still again coming to the fore, trying to set this up for their man Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans can win in a sprint if it's at the end of a very difficult ascent like this, but I'm looking down, Rob, through the list of guys who can win this stage. There's a lot of guys who can win the stage.
Well, on paper, why not Luis Leon Sanchez? Maybe one of the teammates of Bradley Wiggins, Edvald, Bo Hagen. This is a perfect situation for ADB. He could have a good sprint at the end of tough races with a small group. He's probably the fastest man. He's won field sprints in the Tour de France before. I'm almost certain nobody that's won a field sprint in the Tour de France is still in the front group of this stage after so many hard mountains.
Yes, I think I tend to agree with you on that one, Bob, but you can see that's a very small group. There's another man who could win the stage, Luis Leon Sanchez. He's in this group as well. He's got good legs for Team Rabobank as they make it that very long line once again. This has been a very big preparation race for the Tour de France. The names we've talked about all week here have been riders who will be going on to the Tour de France. Some of them won't make the cut. Some of them have got another week of racing there's another race going on in Switzerland at the moment, and it's there that the team managers around about the 20th of June, that's when we'll start to see the shorter lists coming out for the Tour de France teams.
BMC, a very tough squad to even make the roster for the Tour de France. Some of the best bike racers in the world. They spent a lot of money in the offseason to sign Thor Hushovd and Philippe Gilbert. They do have the current Tour de France champion. Thor Hushovd has already announced he will not be participating in the Tour de France. Only 3 men have been named to the BMC roster. Cadel Evans, of course, the defending champ. Philippe Gilbert, winner of a stage last year. And none other than Big George Hincapie, the American, looking to do his 17th Tour de France if everything goes smoothly between now and then.
Well, you might just have noticed a second from the back of that line there as we go through through the Chapelle d'Abondance. The rider who had a very nasty crash early on, Dan Martin, he still managed to get himself through this bike race. It's that important, the Dauphiné. Any other bike race you might want to pull out and try and heal your injuries, but if you're using this as preparation for the Tour de France, you've got to drag your body through.
And for Irishman Dan Martin on the Garmin Barracuda squad, never done the Tour de France before, looking to do that for the first time in his career in just a couple of weeks' time. It starts the 30th of June in Liège, Belgium.
It's going to be a massive start, and in fact one man who'll be dying to try and get the victory very early on around Liège, of course, Philippe Gilbert. He's a local guy, but he hasn't really shown the form this week.
He hasn't shown the form this week or this year. He's had an abysmal season. When it's compared to last season when he won consistently throughout the year, no race wins so far in 2012 for Philippe Gilbert. That's a big story in Belgium.
That's an interesting move. This rider didn't actually attack there, did he, Bob? He just kind of accelerated around the outside of the other guys who are doing the pacemaking. 12 seconds, 7.6 kilometers to go to the finish. That's 4.5 miles of racing left, and you can see they are not having their feathers ruffled at all. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we should be on the finishing climb, the last one. Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra, and we are now inside of 4 miles to go to the finish. The gap is now down to just 7 seconds, and the main field have finally got the prey in their sights. And Team Katusha doing all of the pacemaking, Bob, obviously for Daniel Moreno.
Well, it would be the second stage win of the Dauphiné for Danny Moreno. He just finished 3 weeks of helping his teammate Joaquin Rodriguez in the Giro d'Italia. That is great for the form, assuming you can recuperate. And Danny Moreno, obviously, he's recovered from the efforts in the Giro. He's already won a stage here in the Dauphiné.
Yeah, well, not just that Vincenzo Nibali from attacking off the front is now sitting at the back of that group. It's all over, pretty much bar the shouting. There's one rider just managed to sneak across the gap there from Argos Shimano, but it's very much under the control of Team Katusha. Bradley Wiggins, he's got an armada of riders around him there, Bob, to look after him if anything goes wrong as far as he's concerned.
Danny Moreno, an armada of teammates as well. Second wheel is Denny Menchov, the silent assassin from Russia, winner of the Giro d'Italia, also the Tour of Spain. So to have an ally that's won Grand Tours, that's something special to have indeed.
Well, it certainly is. Those guys have tried it, they have failed, and now it's going to be all eyes and who is going to be the favourite to launch themselves out of this group here. It's a large group. It's around about 35 riders, that the remnants of the 155 riders who started this final stage, very much still under the control of Team Katusha, and BMC Racing have not yet given up the ghost, because always sitting very close to the front. You can see those black and red jerseys and the green jersey a little bit further back. That's Cadel Evans, third overall at the start of the day. Luis Leon Sanchez over there on the left-hand side for Team Rabobank. He would like an uphill finish like today, wouldn't he?
This suits Luis Leon Sanchez's talents to a T. Nice to see TJ Van Garderen still having a good Dauphiné, controlling the tempo for Cadel Evans and rotating out into the wind. TJ sacrificing himself for his team captain, Cadel Evans, on today's stage.
Oh, this is a bit of a problem here. I didn't see what happened there, but that looked like it was TJ Van Garderen. He was second place overall in the Best Young Rider competition, Bob. And at 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles to go, it's going to be pretty tough to get back into the peloton.
Bad luck for TJ Van Garderen. I think he jumped over that traffic island, maybe pinch flatted his rear tire there. Going to have to get a wheel change. Probably his chances for a stage win are gone out the window with that mechanical.
Well, especially when you look at the pressure at the front end of the peloton here. Again, BMC Racing coming forward. These guys are hoping to survive, but I'm sure they're not going to survive very much longer, as the two Frenchmen, they will not give up, Bob, until they are actually back in the control of the peloton.
Argos on the attack. The Argos Shimano rider now leaving the field behind. His teammate John Degenkolb had 2 chances to win a stage, flatted within sight of the finish line on both times. Argos nothing to write home about so far in the Dauphiné, but striking out for a stage win now.
Well, we've got 2 kilometers of reasonably flat road left here. Then it's a 1.5 kilometer climb all the way up to the finish. It's a pretty difficult climb too, at 8% the average grade. And these riders are, I think, Bob, just prolonging the agony here this afternoon, because the peloton will not let them survive.
BMC on the front of the group. Cadel Evans a little further back than is comfortable to win the stage way down the line there. Well, he did lose his pilot fish, TJ Van Garderen, to that mechanical just a few moments ago. They're going to have to reorganize and try to get Cadel Evans a little bit closer to the front. This is going to be a very exciting inside of 2 miles to go to the finish line.
Well, watch out for Bradley Wiggins in the yellow jersey. You know, he has won bunch sprints in the past. He was very prolific in the recent Tour of Romandie, where he went out the overall winner, dominated everybody there in the time trial on the way up to Crans-Montana. He has come out every time he wanted to this year, Bob, and performed to the highest level.
Bradley Wiggins, depending on the time bonuses in that Swiss race. This is a French race, no time bonuses on the line, but Andrew Talansky, the young American on the Garmin squad, pressing Wiggins in the final time trial. Wiggins won a sprint stage very similar to this, got the time bonus, and was able to win the the Tour of Romandie. Overall, he's trying to do that here in the Dauphiné.
Right. Gruppo compacto is what they would say in Italian. The group is all back together, still under the driving power of Team BMC Racing, looking over their shoulder. Cadel Evans must do something. When your team have worked that hard, Bob, when their team have done pacemaking like this, it's the responsibility then of the team leader to do something to pay them back.
Amiel Moinard, the rider from BMC, on the front of the peloton, hoping for a Tour de France invite from his squad. He was on the team last year when Cadel Evans did win the Tour de France. He's racing well now, trying to impress the selectors. Cadel Evans, the stakes are pretty high. He needs a stage win on an uphill climb here for a big boost to his morale going into the Tour de France.
2 kilometers to go. We're about to start the climb. In places 2nd, 3rd and 4th, you've got Team Katusha, but now Cadel Evans has moved up to the front end of the peloton. Bosenhagen is over on the far side there. He has got the killer sprint at the top of a climb like this. We're going to have a very dramatic move, I'm sure, from Cadel Evans. Over on the left, Luis Leon Sanchez. Oh, there's a little bit of argy-bargy. I don't know what went on. I don't think Bradley Wiggins was too happy about that. These guys, somebody took some incredible risks there.
Trying to get into position for this sprint. 1.8 kilometers to go to the finish line, just about a mile. Bradley Wiggins not happy with how aggressive the peloton is, but when there's a stage win on the line, and this is a pretty big group, well, then all kinds of things are going to happen. It's not as dangerous as the full bunch gallops we see dominate the early proceedings of the Tour de France, but a very big group coming to the finish line at this point, just over 1 kilometer to go.
Well, last big race for many of these bike riders before the Tour de France. 4th position, looking very solid there. Edvald Bosenhagen. I have to say, Bob, I remember a team manager of mine once saying you should always try and win on a Sunday because you get all of the Monday newspapers' advertisements.
Luis Leon Sanchez in orange, about 6th wheel, just hovering menacingly at the front there. Cadel Evans, 4th wheel. He's perfectly poised for a big sprint win here today. Edvald Bosenhagen into 4th position. He could really finish it off and get another stage win for himself on today's stage also.
Right, Moreno is in 2nd wheel. He's the rider from Katusha in the red and white jersey. Cadel Evans in 3rd wheel, ideally poised. 4th wheel is Edvald Bosenhagen. 5th wheel is Luis Leon Sanchez. They are all waiting for the moment when they get to the last 300 or 400 meters, and there's a little bit of a gap starting to appear as they go around this 180-degree bend.
Watch out, Bradley Wiggins. Gaps opening up there. You want to stay as near to the front as you can. Inside of 1 kilometer to go for Bradley Wiggins. He will go out the overall winner unless something very dramatic happens in the last few. There it is, 1 kilometer to go, 1,000 yards left in the bike race.
Right, Cadel Evans now looking over his shoulder. Who's going to be the next person to do the pacemaking there? Luis Leon Sanchez, he's waiting too. Cadel Evans now is into 1st position. This is not where you want to be, Bob, and a kilometer to go on a 1 kilometer uphill finish.
Wow, watch out. Danny Moreno almost crashed into Cadel Evans. Moreno looked over his shoulder, didn't see Evans moving across his wheel, and he was able to correct that, and he's still there, 4th place on the road.
Sojasun making the attempt there around this corner, try and get themselves a little gap. Now hovering in 3rd position is Cadel Evans. Moreno now down into 4th position. Now they're both in an ideal position now with somebody else doing the pacemaking. 5th or 6th position is Edvald Bosenhagen.
Now the climb is starting to bite. There is Jürgen Vandenbroek on the front of the bike race. He won a stage in last year's Dauphiné, trying to finish it off today. Cadel Evans in the green jersey. That's a good place to be. Bradley Wiggins a little bit far back now. We've seen Bradley Wiggins dominate this race so far, but Cadel Evans putting big pressure on.
Edvald Bosenhagen is in an ideal position, but it's his own teammate for the first place in the line there. Richie Porto is nailing back that last-minute attack there, and he's pulled it back. Cadel Evans still looking to try and get himself the victory. The big figure in the black and white jersey there just nodding his shoulders a fraction as Jurgen van den Broek moving up the outside. Everybody's waiting. This is a hard climb. Now's the move. Is this the move by Cadel Evans? No, he's just having a little tickle here at the front. Richie Porte has decided he will keep this organised. They must be setting this up, Bob, for Edvard Bozenhagen. How can he win a stage like this after all of the work he's done all week?
Already a stage winner. He's in third position there. He's on Cadel Evans' wheel. Perfectly placed for Bohag.
Bozenhagen now is in their third position. Now look at the moves. This is Luis Leon Sanchez over on the left-hand side. They will have read the book. They know how many corners there are. There's 250 metres to go. Luis Leon Sanchez. Behind him it's Moreno. Third place is Cadel Evans. Luis Leon Sanchez. And look at that base on this man as he looks down to see if there's a shadow of anybody coming forward to challenge him. Moreno has got the punch. He's got the attack when it comes down to the line. But so too is Bozenhagen. Who is going to get this stage this afternoon? Bozenhagen makes his move on the right-hand side. Luis Leon Sanchez looks down. Who's going to come past me on the finish line? It's going to be Danny Moreno. Yes, only just he gets it. That was very close indeed. Bozenhagen third, Cadel Evans fourth. Wiggins, where is he? He's got a lot of time at the start of the day, but I think he's just cruised up to the finishing line here. There he is on the left-hand side. Thank you very much, he says. He lost himself 10 or 12 seconds, but that's not important for him. He kept himself safe. Out of trouble.
Yes, he won't worry about the time gap to Cadel Evans. The teammates, they rode another perfect stage today, and they were never put under pressure. Bradley Wiggins able to close down the attacks throughout the stage, but what a great stage win by Danny Moreno, his second of the Dauphiné this year. His teammate, Joaquin Rodriguez, won 2 stages last year, and Danny Moreno wins 2 stages this year in the Dauphiné and the last stage of the race. Great ride by Danny Moreno, and absolutely dominant performance by Bradley Wiggins from Team Sky to win the overall title for the 2nd year in a row.
Well, this is Luis Leon Sanchez. At this moment, he thought he got the victory, but then all of a sudden he knew that the faster man from Spain on the right-hand side got himself the win. So Daniel Moreno gets himself the stage victory at the end of the day, ahead of Luis Leon Sanchez. Well, they've actually on the photo given third place to Cadel Evans, ahead of Edvald Bozenhagen, and Rinaldo Nocentini up there in fifth. A little bit further down, big names: Jurgen van den Broek in 7th place, Richie Porte in 9th place, Michael Rogers inside the top 10 in 10th place. All of those riders, though, given the same time as the winner, Daniel Moreno. Yep, but on the other side of the break, we'll come back and we'll have an interview with the green jersey winner, Cadel Evans, and the man who wins this race for the 2nd year in a row, Bradley Wiggins. The Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra on the NBC Sports Network, is brought to you by Michelob Ultra, the superior light beer, perfectly balanced for the ultra life. And by Strava, track your rides and compete against friends, locals and pros. Go to strava.com to get started. And Competitive Cyclist, for 15% off cycling apparel and accessories, visit competitivecyclist.com/TDF and use the promo code TDS15. Looking down on the town of Châtel, nestled right in the very heart of the Alps in the eastern part of France. If you cross the Alps in one direction, you go to Switzerland. You cross it in the other direction, you go to Italy. But we're an awful long way from Spain, and that's where Daniel Moreno, the winner of Stage 7 of the Criterium du Dauphine, hails from today, and that was a well-timed win, Bob.
Perfect timing by Danny Moreno to get the stage win. Luis Leon Sanchez seemed to have things well in order, but Danny Moreno just a little bit faster, comes up with his 2nd stage win of this week's Dauphiné.
Yes, to win stages like that, you've got to stay calm, you've got to wait, and you've got to produce that effort at the right time to get past the man who is in front of you. That's exactly what he did today, Daniel Moreno, and we've given him the Road ID Ride of the Day.
Followed the tempo set by Team Sky throughout the day's proceedings to control the breakaway. Then he makes his dash for the line. This is a great acceleration. Very few riders get the better of Luis Leon Sanchez when Luis Leon Sanchez has his sights set for a finish, but Danny Moreno was able to do so today.
Yes, for the Road ID Ride of the Day. There's no doubt now about the yellow jersey presentation. It will go to Bradley Wiggins. I don't think Bobby's ever looked in difficulty throughout this whole 8-day race.
Well, he went deep to win the time trial. He had such a massive advantage there. The last 3 days in the mountains could have dislodged him. His teammates were absolutely spectacular. He raced well in the mountains too. He will go out 2nd time in a row, the winner of the Dauphiné. Great ride by the Brit on the Sky team, Bradley Wiggins.
Well, you know, I have to say, Bob, that I think he's the #1 favourite for the Tour de France this year. When you look at everything he's done, every rendezvous that he's thrown out, he's respected them and he's come up good. Bradley Wiggins then wins the Dauphiné this year ahead of his teammate Michael Rogers. Cadel Evans will finish on the podium in 3rd position, but another Sky Pro Cycling rider in 4th and another one in 9th. Richie Porte, 9th at 3 minutes 34 seconds. But a little bit further back, Haimar Zubeldia from Radio Shack Nissan gets himself inside of the top 10.
And a very steady week of racing in support of Cadel Evans for TJ Van Gardner, the American on BMC, 14th overall. Danny Pate finishes 142nd.
Let's hear what Bradley Wiggins has to say.
Bradley, a second consecutive victory on the Dauphiné. I know history means a lot for you. What does it mean to be on that list again with prestigious winners?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive, you know, and, you know, the Tour de France, because all the talk is of the Tour at the moment, but, you know, that aside, just to win Paris-Nice and Dauphiné in the same year, you know, it's huge, you know, so regardless of what happens at the Tour now, so I'm delighted, really.
I look back at this week, you looked so comfortable out there with a very strong team. You didn't look that worried finally.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy when you've got a team as strong as I have, you know, and they took the strain on most days, and, yeah, right to the death, even today they were there, and, you know, I can't thank them enough, and they just, I've been saying all week, but they make my job so much easier, that's for sure.
Your mind was only set on this race, you weren't thinking of what could happen in the next weeks?
No, just obviously after the time trial, we only had 3 days, you know, and, you know, this is our job, this is what we're paid to do, so, you know, you go out there and do it, really, and obviously now it's finished, obviously everything turns to the Tour, but fantastic final bit of preparation, that's for sure.
A couple of weeks to go before the Tour, what are the plans now? What are you going to do during these weeks?
Try and avoid as many people as possible and spend as much time with my wife and kids.
I mean, the training is done, you're prepared.
Training is, you know, daily bread and butter, really, it's what we do, but in terms of the hard work, yeah, that's pretty much done now, there's not much more to be done.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's a top competitor and he will meticulously prepare now, Bob, for July.
Well, interestingly, in recent years, the winner of the Tour de France has been very consistent throughout the season. Bradley Wiggins, already the winner of 3 big stage races. He's got to be considered the hot favorite for the Tour de France with the way he rode this week.
Yes, Bob, when you talk about consistency, you have to actually be very consistent on every individual stage to win the points classification.
He won 1 stage, and he was up there day in and day out. 2nd on yesterday's stage, 3rd on today's stage. He will win the green points leaders jersey for the Dauphiné. Very special prize for any bike racer.
No, it certainly is, and Cadel Evans is a proud man. He battled on all of the stages to try and pull himself back some time on Bradley Wiggins, and don't discount this man when it goes through to the month of July and the Tour de France. It's a completely different era, it's a completely different event. He wins that classification with 66 points ahead of today's stage winner, Daniel Moreno, with 58 points. Bradley Wiggins, with his consistency too, was in 4th place, looking for 47 points. Well, let's go down to the back of the podium because we can have a quick chat with the man who runs out as the winner of the green jersey classification.
Cadel, you're here with your son. It must be a great moment to be here on the podium with him, I suppose, first of all.
I think he prefers to see me in yellow, actually, but no, it's been a good week of racing, and compliments to Sky. They rode very, very well. Wiggins especially, of course, I think they really deserve to win here, and yeah, compliments to them. When you get beaten by a better team, by a better guy, that's the way it goes. But it's been a very good week of racing, hard racing.
Yeah, good week for you. Green jersey on your shoulders, a stage victory, and again today you were fighting for that victory.
Yeah, we're going okay. We had a bit of bad luck. TJ was going to be my main guy to help me in the last sort of kilometre or 2, but he got taken out with a couple of kilometres to go, which was a bit unlucky. Left me alone, and of course I was looking a little bit at maybe on the off chance of improving my classification as well. So diversifying means less specialised.
How much did you think about the Tour during this week? Was that a concern? Was that in the back of your mind, or you just want to focus on the race?
No, I'm not my main objective of the year is the Tour, of course, but I take each race as a race, and yeah, whether I'm there for win or lose, I like to give everything, and that's the way I race. That's the way I like to race, and so yeah, like I come here and try and win. But like I said, I was beaten by a better team and a better guy here, so I was racing for 3rd or 4th place, and yeah, now from this block of hard racing, it's I feel it's a good little block of training towards July, and hopefully the best form I'll have of the year so far.
how do you rate your state of form now, and what do you have to work on for the next couple of weeks?
Oh, of course, I've got a few things to work on, but I've still got quite a bit of room for improvement, which is the way I like to be at this point. And first of all, rest and recover a little bit, and then some fine tuning towards the tour.
Yes, that little man, 1 year of age from Ethiopia, that Cadel Evans and his wife Kiara actually adopted over the Christmas period. But now, Bob, it's all heads down for the Tour de France.
Couple of weeks between Cadel Evans and his rendezvous with defending his Tour title won last year in the Tour de France. Cadel Evans mentioned he has some work to do, but that man in the yellow jersey, it might not be enough time to be able to do that.
Alongside the man in the yellow jersey there is the team manager, Sean Yates, himself aware of the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. But what a strong team this team has become over the last couple of years.
Well, this race, Dauphiné, Team Sky has absolutely demolished everybody out on the open road. They have so many weapons at their disposal. They were able to keep Bradley Wiggins calm, cool, and collected and out of trouble. Ideal situation for Sky.
Question is, who's going to be the ninth man? Well, don't forget, tonight cycling continues at the Tour de Suisse at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, when again there will be another mountaintop finish. If you want to find out any more about our schedule, please log on to our website at nbcsports.com. And then until a little bit later on this evening, I'm Paul Sherwin for Bob Roll saying, see you later.